Thank you all for joining. I'll wait another minute for people to get on, but we will be starting in time. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's a real pleasure to show you the new features that we released over the summer. It's been quite a bit of work, a busy time for the development team, but we have some really exciting features to walk you through today. My name is Bart. I'm one of the founders and CTO of xyzt.ai. And as you all know, the platform, I will just dive in immediately and talk about the most recent updates. After that, I will also take some time to give you a small sneak preview of what is coming up in the coming weeks and months. Many exciting more things to come. And I will leave sufficient time for Q&A. So please, if you have any questions during the webinar, you can just put them in the Q&A box, and I think you should be able to access it at the bottom of your screen. First of all, the recent updates, I want to point you to a little icon on the lower left in the platform. What's new, and if you click on that, you end up on the documentation platform, and there you can always find the list of new features. So that is a good entry point to check out once in a while to see what has been updated if you didn't follow the communication around the new releases. So feel free to go there and find all the information. Today I will make it a little bit more visual and interactive and show you the features in real life on the platform. So going to the recent features, I divided them into three categories. The first one is all about data handling or data uploads. Second one is mostly about trend analytics. And finally, we will also talk about styling and filtering, which are two of the most common capabilities that people use on the platform. But the first step is, of course, how to get data in. And for data uploads, we did quite a bit of improvements and new features over the summer. First of all, you can now create a new data set from an existing one. And that means that you can basically start with the entire configuration of an already existing data set, and then you just have to upload the new data. You don't have to care about adding or configuring any of the data properties anymore. We also have a new upload wizard. It's super handy, and I'll show it in a minute, which gives you a preview of your data, and it allows you to much more easily configure all the different data properties. We've also added Parquet support. It was one of the most requested features over the past year. Parquet is a file format that has become very popular because of the big data platforms like Databricks and so on. And the nice thing about Parquet is that it contains information about the data properties, the name of the columns of the properties and the types of the properties that we can leverage. And then finally, we made some enhancements to upload point data. Point data we see a lot, for example, when you're dealing with traffic data, accidents, or near accidents, basically event-like data that happens in large quantities and that you want to analyze, like you can analyze the movement data in the platform. So let me just show you most of these features in action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a fresh project here. And as you can see, there's no data set, so I'm going to create a new data set. And I'm going to give it the name US accidents. Going to select the point data feature. I'm selecting the parquet format, and I'm describing what's in the data. And as you can see now, there's a Dropbox, and on the Dropbox, you can just drop a sample file because typically people upload billions of data points. Here, the meaning is just to drop one sample file that tells the platform what is in the data. And as you can see, the platform analyzes the data, and you can very easily configure the different properties. When you work with CSV, that's also possible. You can do exactly the same thing. There's two custom properties in this data set, so the platform adapts to what's in the data. And here I'm configuring them as enumerations. So it's basically accident data. There's a severity property, and there's like a condition property, whether it was raining or not. And this is all you have to do now to configure your data. And from that point on, you can drop all your Parquet files or CSV files. And to give you an idea of what the data looks like, this is in the end the visual analytics page that shows you the default heat map view of the data. And as you can see on the right side, the severity property is there and the conditions properties are there as well. And you can start analyzing. So typically what we see now is that it just takes a couple minutes to get a new data set in, and it's much more easy now than to do so. And if you work with the same type of data, you can just reuse the configuration that you did and just create a new data set by initializing from an existing one. So from a benefit point of view, it allows for much faster data upload configurations. It also leaves less room for errors. It's much more difficult to make a mistake, for example, to use the wrong column or the wrong property for the timestamp, because you can just see what you're doing. Another additional benefit is, for example, if you initialize a new data set from an existing one, that you have compatible data sets. And compatible data sets in the platform are extremely useful because you can use them for side-by-side analysis. And I will show some of those benefits later on when talking about styling. In case you want to work with Parquet, and I know many of the data providers, they provide data in a Parquet format, you don't have to go to CSV anymore before getting the data in. So that's a huge time saver for many people. And the point data example that you saw, which was like millions and millions of accidents across the US, you can just now upload as is, and you don't have to use the movement data type anymore. So point data is really a first-class citizen now in the platform. So that was for data uploads. The second new feature that I want to talk about are a couple enhancements and improvements related to trend analytics. We used to have trend analytics from the start because it's so core to what people are doing on the platform. They want to analyze trends, like, for example, how busy is it on a certain highway, or how busy it is in a certain port in the maritime case. Over the summer, we added a new trend analytics capability, which we called categorized trends. And I'll show that with a nice use case in the next demo. We also allow you now to fix your vertical axis. The vertical axis, when you plot a trend, used to be adaptive. It used to adapt to what you're plotting on the trend line. On the graph, basically. So the min and the max values were basically adaptive to the data. But in many cases, you want to plot your statistics, for example, on a dashboard side by side. And in that case, you want your two graphs to follow the same scale so that you can compare whether in one instance it's more busy than in the other instance. In addition, we also added, and that is not just for trend analytics, it's for all the analytics. We added the capability to download the results of the analytics as an Excel file. And the main benefit there is that you don't have to worry about all the issues that people experience with CSV files, such as, for example, is it using a comma or a dot comma, or is it using special characters or not? in case of, for example, the German language. So let me show you the trend analytics enhancements with a real world use case. So in this case, I'm using floating vehicle data from INRIX, which is basically traffic data, traffic movement data. And the analyst is basically applying two spatial filters. And the analyst here is looking at basically how is traffic flowing off the highway. The highway is closed, and there's a from filter in the south, a to filter in the north, and you see that people follow from the density map. And if you go back in time here, you can see normally people would be on the highway, but now people are following different routes. And you can see from the density map, when it's very bright, very wide, there's a lot of traffic. And when it's dark blue, there's less traffic. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating three areas. I'm just calling them quickly A, B, and I will call this one C, so that we can analyze what is happening in those areas, because we want to quantify how busy it is over time. If you go to the trend analytics, you can see on the top right that you can now select categorized. And by default, there's just one category, which is everything. And you see a chart here showing all the number of trips over time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the same filters. Like I'm only interested in the traffic that comes from this exit 14 in the south and goes to exit 13 in the north. And this is for the last day in the data, the trend line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look here at more than one day to get a better analytics, to get more informed results. And that's why I plot everything accumulated by hour of day. And you see the average number of trips by hour of day. So what you see now is a trend line, a single trend line of all the traffic taking the exit 14, going to exit 13. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to split this up, and I'm going to look at first the vehicle weight classes. And what you can see now is you can see three graphs, and there's three types of vehicle weight classes. The orange one here is the medium heavy vehicles. The green one are the very heavy, and the blue one is the light traffic. And you see different peaks in the data, which you can analyze separately. I removed the data category again, and I'm going to add a category based on the areas. And in this case, I'm using the areas A, B, and C. So those three hotspots that I want to analyze. And just by doing these few clicks, I can plot them next to each other. I can plot them in line charts, in bar charts. I can see which routes that people take coming from exit 14 to exit 13 are more busy. You see it as a table as well. And later I will show that you can download the table. And what becomes really powerful is if you start combining different categories. So I'm going to combine the vehicle weight class with the area category. And you see now in the table, you see there's like A, B, and C, which are each of them split in three different columns related to the light, medium, and heavy trucks. And so in just a few clicks, we get a full analysis on the amount of traffic along those three different routes, taking the exit 14, going to exit 13, for the different vehicle weight classes. And this is a huge time saver compared to before. Before, people had to put filters, download the result of the filter, and combine those results, for example, in Excel for further analysis. And now you can just configure that in a few clicks. And the possibilities are really endless. You can choose whatever categories you want. And I will show a small sneak preview of what we're going to release next, where you can even configure categories using any custom filter. So not just by area, by property, or by time, which we already have, as you can see here on the screen. So this is some of the improvements. I didn't show everything, but the main benefit is you can very easily look at subsets in your data, and you can compute and combine different trends over time. You can do that by hour of day, by day of week. You can put them on one graph, on multiple graphs, and so on and so forth. If you use the vertical axis scaling, which I didn't show in the demo, you can easily put multiple graphs next to each other on the dashboard, and you can be sure that the scale will be consistent. We also saw that export to Excel is a huge time saver. It just opens, while, as you might know, with CSV, it is not always like that, especially if you're working with CSV and Excel. So that are the main improvements on the trend analytics. The final category of features that we released are related to styling and filtering, and there's quite a few there. The first one is related to importing and exporting of layer styles, and I will show that in the demo in a minute. The second one is that we improved the filter editor. As some of you might know, we have a very advanced filter capability that allows you to define very specific traffic and movement scenarios that you want to analyze. And finally, we also made some improvements towards the trajectory visualization, most importantly in labeling or visualizing with text properties, the different information in the data. So let me first show you the import and export of the different layer styles. So imagine you're doing an analysis as an analyst and you are configuring styling, for example, on the map. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm changing the default styling on the map to use a property in the data, which is in this case in German, but it's a speed property. How fast do people drive in a certain location? I'm using a color map, but in most cases, what we've noticed is that people use very specific configurations. For example, they use a color green when traffic is very slow. For example, between 0 and 30 kilometers an hour. They use maybe a color orange for traffic between 30 and 50. So I'm going to configure that now. And as you can imagine, and I'm going to continue configuring a few more colors here, so it becomes a sort of a realistic scenario. But as you can imagine, this takes quite a bit of time. And the first time you do that, it takes time. And one of the challenges that we saw that our users had was that if they work with many projects and with many different users, that they had to redo this configuration for every project or for every different data set. And to make things even worse, within a data set, there's so many different properties, and one property you might want to style in one way, another property in another way. So you have to do a lot of configuration. You could already save what you did as a bookmark, but if you want to use your style in another project, you couldn't do that. And as you see, you can now save the style. And then in another project, which I'm opening here, I call it project 2. It's a different data set. It's from a different day, basically. It's the same area. If you, in that project, wanted to have the same style, you had to reconfigure. And now you can just load the JSON file, which just applies the style on the fly. And that's a huge benefit and time saver for people working with layer styles. There's a couple more scenarios where layer styles come in useful. I'm just going to reload the page here. As you can see, it reloads with the default. And another scenario is, for example, when you do a side-by-side analysis. And I'm just doing it with the same data here, but typically you do it with two different data sets. And say that you configured on the left view one style, which I'm doing here just by picking a different color map and maybe changing here the value range a little bit. And if you wanted to apply that style to the right, you could do that by syncing the layers, but now you can just do a copy paste. So there's really a copy and a paste button now, and that just copies the whole style from the left to the right. And because the style is still in my clipboard, I can just paste it on another project and immediately get the style there. So you can save styles to files and load style to files, but you can also just use a copy-paste functionality, which is a super powerful feature when you're quickly switching between different data sets or different projects. So that's the layer styles. I'll talk about the benefits a little bit later, but I'm going to now move to the second improvement that we made, and that is related to the advanced filter editor. And for the users of this filter editor, they would probably have seen that it was a quite basic text editor. And the example that I'm going to show here is from the maritime domain. And we're going to analyze traffic going through this platform area, so this circle area on the right side of the map. And we're going to analyze traffic through that area. And you can do that by filtering, for example, on the data properties, or you can filter here, like, for example, only look at what is happening inside the shape. And this is extremely powerful and covers 90% of the cases of our users. But for all the other more advanced cases, we allow people to write advanced filters. And they look like this. So, for example, if you only want to have the movements or the routes that follow a certain trajectory, you can basically define that trajectory. For example, in this case, I'm looking at all data that at some point is inside the platform. So at all ships that are at some point inside the platform. But I'm also looking at where they were before. So that's what this asset route filter says. What we did is we improved the syntax highlighting. We added additional help. We added code completion if you want. And finally, and this is extremely powerful, if you open up the editor, we also allow you to use a small UI to very easily ingest code snippets, for example, for an area. So instead of typing area, you can just select the area and insert that code snippet. And it will just provide the right syntax without the possibility for you to make any mistakes. So the same for the platform area here. So in this case, we're looking at traffic that leaves Cape Town and goes to the platform area. I'm going to change the color map a little bit here. Let me do that just quickly here so that the data becomes a bit more visible. Yeah, and I'm also selecting trajectories, which will link me to the next feature I want to discuss as well. So you see, adding areas is now very easy to do with shortcuts through that small UI on the right side. But also, if you want to filter on data properties, instead of having to type the property name and the property value, you can just select a property from a drop-down box, and you can just select the value from a drop-down box. So for example, what I'm doing here is I'm just filtering only on the fishing vessels. So from all the ships that move from Cape Town to the platform area, I'm filtering out the fishing vessels. And that's what this little advanced filter does. The filtering capability is much more powerful than this, but you can see that the aids you get by coding is super with the little UI and the insertion of properties and values and areas is extremely powerful and a huge time saver. And here you see I'm analyzing the movements and you see how the vessels move. And at some point they leave Cape Town and at some point they enter the platform area again. So this is extremely powerful for a maritime intelligence analyst to set up. So this is for the advanced filter editor. It has become much more user-friendly and it's a huge time saver for people using it. And then the final enhancement we made is around these trajectories that you just saw. I'm just going to open a different example here. As you know already, we support line-based visualization and analysis. So in this case, we're looking at ships in the North Sea, and they're color-coded by speed. When they're blue, they're slow, they're idle. When they're red, they're sailing. You also know that we can paint them with icons, and now we added labeling support. So you can add, for example, the identifier, which in the maritime domain is called the MMSI, which is basically a unique identifier of the ship. You can add that as a label now. If you don't want a label, you can disable it, of course. So let me do that here. You can disable the label. We also now support when you move your mouse over a ship or over a trajectory line even. We show you what's happening below that point. What is the ship? What are the different properties in the data? And this is fully adaptive to your data. So if you have different data properties, the tooltip adapts to that. So these are two small enhancements for the trajectories, but they help our users a lot in gaining situational awareness. So what are the benefits for this styling and filtering? Mainly time saving. You can just copy paste styles, you can reuse styles, you can even define your styles company-wide and make sure that everyone uses the same styling and that all the reports, for example, all the dashboards that you create follow the same conventions. The other filter enhancements are for the more advanced users, but also their time saving and improved productivity is really why we did this. So that concludes basically my first part of this walkthrough. I have a few more minutes to talk about what is coming soon. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. First of all, in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to release 3 main features. But before going into that, I want to show a little bit about the roadmap. First of all, roadmaps are never a commitment. They can change due to circumstances, due to external circumstances, and so on. But most of the time, of course, we can make what we commit on. But I just want to make that statement. What is xyzt.ai's roadmap philosophy? And you can also find it on our webpage. One of our values is that we are customer driven. And also our roadmap is customer driven to a large amount. So this means that we listen to our customers, we sit next to our customers and we look what they do with the platform. And then we improve the platform to enhance their workflows. At the same time, we want to stay at the forefront of innovation and we want to have a leading innovative position. And as a product manager, you have to balance those different requests. The customers ask for many simple features or many straightforward features, but at the same time, you have to be ahead of the competition. And typically what product managers do is they look in 4 categories, in 4 buckets. The first one is what moves the metric, what increases revenue. That's important for a commercial company. So that's an important bucket as well. The second is what is the customer asking? And if many customers are asking the same thing, that's something to look into. And then finally, and that's something I also like to sneak in a few features once in a while, are customer delights. Those are typically things that customers didn't ask for themselves, but they maybe didn't realize if they would have that feature or improvement, that it would be beneficial to their workflow, or they could do much more better analysis, but they didn't realize themselves. And I try to sneak in a few of those features once in a while with every release because it really gives the customers a nice feeling about the platform. And then finally, there are strategic features. And today I want to show you one of those strategic features that are very important to the company. And they typically are in the making over a longer time period. They take more planning, they take more research, and they take typically also more time to put in the market. So what is coming really soon, maybe not next week, but probably in 2 weeks, are the following 3 features. We finally made widgets editable. You could edit widgets, you could edit the content, only the title, the description, the size, the position, but the actual map or chart behind the widget was not editable. And we made that editable, was a popular request. So this is clearly a customer request. We also adding custom categories for trends. I talked about that in the beginning already. And what's really nice about this feature, and in one of the next webinars or talks, I want to give a few examples where this becomes extremely powerful. For example, in the next update, you will be able to define different travel routes, different routes that ships take, or different routes that people take to go from point A to point B as different options in a category. And then you can compare travel times along those different routes for those different options that you made available. It's extremely powerful and it's going to be used, we're sure, in the maritime domain, but it's also going to be used in the traffic and mobility domain. That being said, the biggest feature that we're going to release in a couple of weeks is related to travel time analytics. The platform already allows you to analyze travel time. You can compute origin destination matrices. You can compute matrices with travel times, changes in travel times, and so on. But now what we did is we made travel time a core property of movement data in the platform. So for any data set that is movement data, such as floating vehicle data, but also vessel tracking data, anything that has basically GPS coordinates or other coordinates of things that move, you can now analyze travel time for any route or any subset of routes that people or things take. You can look at the average travel times, the mean, the min, the max, and so on. You can look at changes in travel time. You can look at trends in travel time. During which periods of the day is travel time increasing or decreasing along different routes? So if you combine this with a categorized trend analytics, this becomes an extremely powerful feature to look at how long does it take for people or things to move from point A to point B along different routes. We also report even distributions of travel time. So for example, are all the travel times around two hours, or is there some people maybe taking 1 hour, some people maybe taking 10 hours? That is also going to be a core feature in the platform, and it will work on existing movement data sets and on new data sets. So this is something we're really excited about, and we will give a lot more info later on. Then probably the biggest announcement for us this year is the following, and I want you to watch our teaser movie. And this is something we've been working on hard over the past months. And we called it Just Ask xyzt.ai. And we're basically combining generative AI with space-time analytics. And it will allow you to ask questions like you would do in a normal way. Show all the tankers that are moving from point A to point B. In this example, I'm using the same sort of example as before, and I'm asking, show me all traffic that takes a certain exit and drives through a certain area. And in this case, I'm also asking to get back on the highway. And as you can see, I can just type in a natural language, and I don't have to know anymore how to code those filters. This example, I know it goes a bit fast, but you will be able to revisit the movie. This example is extremely powerful in the sense that the AI can really make up what I mean. I'm telling the AI that it should be just only the traffic that takes 5 days, and it converts it to seconds, and it uses the right queries. In this example, I'm using the AI to basically populate a dashboard just by asking questions. Add me a widget like this, add me a widget like that, and so on. So I know it's quick, it's a teaser, but there's much, much more to come about this. But feel free to go to just ask xyzt.ai to rewatch this teaser movie, or send us a mail at demo@xyzt.ai or info@xyzt.ai if you want to see this in action in a live demo. So this concludes basically my quick walkthrough of the latest features and a short preview of what is coming up. For us, it's been really exciting listening and working with our customers. We're super excited that we can improve the platform workflow, improve the efficiency, allow for much more analysis and visualizations. And we think it's a super powerful platform for anything that moves or changes in time. So that being said, I think we have a couple more minutes for some questions. So I'm gonna open up the Q&A here and see what questions are there. If you can think of more questions, please post them. I have one question here. The question is, the examples that you showed are with historic data. Does it also work with real-time data? The answer is yes. The platform has an API that allows you to to put data in real time. So you can just call the API all the time and ingest the platform. And you can even build widgets on dashboards that basically update when new data gets in. For instance, you could, for example, look at the last day of traffic, or the last day of number of vehicles moving from point A to point B, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's definitely possible. One more question here related to the generative AI. And the question is, when will it be available? Very good question. What we are doing now is we are talking to our customers. We are accepting beta customers because we want to put it in the hands of people that are doing real-world daily analysis. And of course, we will gather feedback and improve the feature. But yeah, we're very excited about it, and it will soon be available, but I cannot put a definite time frame on that yet. But please reach out if you have a project or if you have a case where it would be extremely handy to have it available already. So unless there are no more questions, I would like to thank you for joining me today. It's really my pleasure to have you as our customers. Always open to for a talk, for feedback, for input, because that's what defines our roadmap. So don't hesitate to reach out, send me an email, or send an email to the general email address info@xyzt.ai. And also, if you want to have a customized training or a customized workshop, just reach out and we can see what we can do for you. So with that, thank you for joining, and let's see you next time.